Okay, let's just admit it. We're all kind of drowning in data these days. But what if the real power, the real skill, isn't just collecting all that data, but actually turning that raw, messy stuff into a story that makes sense? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to become data sculptors.
And I'm going to be blunt here. On its own, raw data is pretty much useless. Seriously. Think about a giant spreadsheet packed with numbers or a database full of transactions. By itself, it doesn't tell you a thing. It's really just a big, uncarved block of marble. Yeah, there's potential in there, for sure, but until we start shaping it, it's just a rock.
So that's the big question, right? How do we take that block of marble and start chiseling away until a real, insightful story starts to emerge? It's a journey, really, from total chaos to crystal clarity. And don't worry, we're going to walk through every single step of it together.
You know, this whole process has a name. It's called data analytics, and the person doing it, that's our data sculpture. They don't just stare at numbers, no way. They collect, they clean, they shape, and they organize the data. The goal here isn't to end up with a neat-looking spreadsheet. The goal is to find those hidden conclusions, the stuff that helps people make smart, informed decisions out in the real world. All right, so before we can even think about sculpting, we need to get a handle on our material. And the thing is, data is absolutely everywhere. It's in the steps you take every day, the shows you binge watch, the coffee you just bought. Our lives are basically giant data-generating machines. But here's the kicker. Just having the data isn't enough. The real trick is knowing how to approach it.
So when we talk about approaching data, there are basically 4 key types of analysis. First, you've got descriptive, which answers a question, what happened? Think of it like a summary of the past. Then there's diagnostic, which asks, okay, why did it happen? Next up is predictive, trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future. And finally, prescriptive, which tells us, so what should we do about it? Now, for today, we're going to laser focus on that first foundational step, descriptive analysis. It's all about just understanding what our data is telling us right now.
Okay, every great story needs a beginning, and for a data story, that beginning is the raw material itself. But, before we can sculpt anything, we gotta have a place to put it. So where does all this information actually live? That question brings us right to the world of data storage. And really, when it comes to storage, you've got 2 main schools of thought, SQL and NoSQL. Think of SQL, or relational databases, like a perfectly organized filing cabinet. Everything has its place in neat tables with rows and columns. It's fantastic for really structured data, like, say, a list of customers and their orders. NoSQL, on the other hand, is more like a collection of super flexible digital folders. You can toss in documents, key value pairs, all sorts of stuff, which makes it perfect for data that's not so neatly structured. This table really breaks it all down nicely. With SQL, you have a fixed structure, what we call a schema. It's predefined. And if you need more power, you usually beef up your one server. That's called scaling vertically. NoSQL is the opposite. Its schema is dynamic, it can change on the fly, and to scale it, you just add more servers to the network. That's scaling horizontally. It's a huge advantage when you're dealing with massive amounts of data that are constantly changing.
So, we've got our data stored. You're probably thinking, great, let's get to the fun analysis part. Well, hold on a second. We've just hit what might be the single most important part of this whole process. And honestly, it's often like 80% of the work. I'm talking about data cleaning.
You've probably heard the saying, garbage in, garbage out. And let me tell you, it could not be more true in data analysis. If you build a super sophisticated model on top of messy, junky data, you're just going to get sophisticated junk out the other end. All those little errors and inconsistencies, they can lead you to conclusions that are completely, totally wrong. The takeaway here is simple, and it's not up for debate. You absolutely have to clean your data.
So, how do we actually do this cleaning? Well, it's a step-by-step process. First up, you've got to hunt down and get rid of any duplicate entries. Then, you fix all the syntax errors. We're talking typos, weird capitalization, inconsistent formatting, that kind of stuff. Next, you have to figure out what to do with outliers, those data points that are just way out there and don't seem to fit. After that, you tackle missing data. Do you remove those records, try to fill in the blanks? And finally, the last step is to validate everything, cross-checking to make sure it's all accurate and reliable.
All right, our data is finally clean. It's reliable, it's ready. Now it's time to let it speak. This is that magic moment where the data sculptor really starts to see the shape of the statue hidden inside that block of marble. And remember, we're focusing on descriptive analysis. So the goal right now isn't about predicting the future or anything fancy like that. It's all about deeply understanding what's happening right now. We're summarizing the essential features of our data to find patterns, spot anything that looks a little weird, and just, get a good gut feeling for what's in there. And of course, every sculptor needs their tools, right? In the world of data, especially if you're using Python, you've got an incredible toolkit. NumPy is like your foundational powerhouse for all the numerical heavy lifting. Pandas is your go-to for manipulating and analyzing data and tables. It's incredibly powerful. Scikit-learn gives you tools for more advanced stuff like machine learning. And when you're ready to show off your masterpiece, Matplotlib and Seaborn are what you'll use to create those beautiful, insightful charts and graphs. So, what are we actually doing at this stage? Well, we're basically calculating some simple but really powerful stats. We're trying to find what's called the central tendency. Things like the mean, which is just the average, the median, which is the value smack dab in the middle, and the mode, which is the value that shows up most often. This tells us where the center of our data is. Then we also look at the spread to see how widely distributed our data is. Put it all together, and you get a really clear snapshot of your dataset. So, let's recap. We've cleaned our data, we've analyzed it. Now it's time for the grand finale, showing people what we found. Because look, an amazing insight is completely useless if you can't communicate it clearly to other people. And that, my friends, is where data visualization comes in. But before you jump in and start making charts, it's a really good idea to just pause. Ask yourself 3 critical questions. Number 1, what data am I actually looking at? 2, who is my audience? Are they experts or is this for a general crowd? That changes everything. And 3, maybe the most important question of all, what is the one key message I am trying to get across? Thinking through those questions is going to help you avoid some really common mistakes. And let's look at a classic example of what not to do, the cluttered pie chart. I mean, just look at this thing. It's supposed to show us pet distribution, but with all those tiny little slivers, it's just a visual mess. Can you honestly tell me at a glance which slice is bigger, lizard or horse? I definitely can't. The reason is our brains are just not wired to accurately compare the angles in a pie chart, especially when the slices get small. This chart fails. It fails because the message is completely lost. Okay, now look at this. What a difference, right? When your goal is to compare a bunch of different categories, a simple bar chart is almost always a better choice. It's instantly clear which bar is the longest because our eyes are fantastic at comparing lengths. The message here is immediate, it's clear, and it's pretty much impossible to get wrong. All right, here's another pro tip for you, and this one will instantly make your charts better. Just don't use 3D effects. Seriously. They might look kind of flashy, but trust me, they are the enemy of clarity. Take a look at the 3D chart on the left. That perspective thing it's got going on makes it really hard to judge the actual height of the bars, especially the ones in the back. It's literally distorting the data. Now, the boring 2D chart on the right, it's way, way better. Why? Because it's honest. It shows the data accurately, and that should always, always be your number one goal. And just like that, we've come full circle. Remember where we started? With a raw, meaningless block of data. We did the hard work of cleaning it, shaping it, and analyzing it. And this final, clear visualization, this is our finished sculpture. It's the story that was hidden in all that noise, and now it's finally ready to be shared with the world. So, the one thing I want you to take away from all this is that data doesn't speak for itself. It's silent. It needs a storyteller. It needs someone like you to give it a voice. Now that you know the process, you can be that storyteller. So the only real question left is, what stories are hiding in the data all around you, just waiting to be told?